Hello, and welcome to the Content Byte, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynne Testoni. I'm a journalist and content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we bring you all kinds of tips, tricks, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business.
As a writer, I'm great with words, but I rely on Rounded to do the number crunching. Not only has it helped me get my head around my business finances without needing to rely on anyone else, Rounded also tells me who my top clients are and if I have a slow patch coming up. Plus, I can see exactly which of my services bring in the most money so I can make informed business decisions. So much control, but without the stress.
And don't forget, if you're a member of Rachel's List, a gold member of Rachel's List, you're in luck because you can save 20% on any annual Rounded plan.
Hi Lynne, how are you going? I am really looking forward to our guest this week.
Oh, me too. It's Monica Davidson. Lots of fabulous ideas and tips. Would you like to introduce her?
I will. So Monica Davidson is an award-winning expert on the creative industries, and she has infamously never had a proper job. We're going to get into that. She began her creative life as a freelance journalist and filmmaker before starting a production company in the early 90s. And her experience highlighted how unprepared creative people can be for a life of entrepreneurship. Ain't that the truth? As she learned the basics, Monica started offering informal advice and running workshops to help other creatives with their freelance work. And she continued to work with creative practitioners. More than 25 years on, she is a renowned and award-winning expert in the fields of freelancing, creative industries, and arts entrepreneurship. And through her social enterprise Creative Plus business group, which many of you listening have come across or may have heard of or may already be in that as a member, Monica helps creatives at all stages of their careers to improve their business skills. So welcome, Mon.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Every time I hear my bio read out, I think, oh, she sounds cool. And then I remember it's me. So dumb.
It's a very,
we're all
such
like
a
that.
bizarre feeling listening to someone read your bio. Yeah,
I know. It's like,
weird.
oh, yeah, that's me. Okay.
Yeah. But gosh, you sound busy, Monica. And you say in your bio you've never had a proper job. So tell me about that. You're never tempted by the 9 to 5?
Oh, look, it wasn't really through choice. I was raised in a very creative household. So I didn't really witness other people having so-called proper jobs. And I'm using, air quotes around proper job, although every creative person knows what I mean by that. Yeah. So I witnessed the grown-ups in my life having not proper jobs. My mum's an artist, and, other family members were musicians, and we had a very kind of piecemeal existence. My mother eventually became a full-time art teacher when I was 12, but by that stage the damage had been done. And so I didn't grow up with a normal understanding of what work actually was. So when it came time as a teenager for me to start thinking about work and making my own money, I did the things that I knew how to do and the connections that I had. So I started writing. I'd been identified by a couple of my teachers as having a talent in that area. And so one of them put me forward to become what was known as the classroom correspondent for the Newcastle Morning Herald, I'll have you know, which was my first paid byline. And I was 16 when that happened. And in the same year, I started singing professionally as well through father and stepfather contacts, both of whom were musicians. And when they found out I could also sing, they'd pay me to be a backup singer, or I did a few solo gigs and things. So while my friends were going to Kmart or Macca's to get work, I went in the natural direction of where my, experience and where the grown-ups kind of guided me to go. So yeah, it was just a little bit fortuitous, I suppose. And then I did genuinely believe, and young people always laugh when I say this, but people of a certain age will get it. When I went to university, my family assured me that it would be free and then I would get a job. And
Yes.
so I went off to university with the two assumptions in my head that one, it would be free, and two, I would get a job at the end of it, because that had been the reality for the grown-ups in my life. And then, of course, I was at university when they introduced HEX, and I went, well, excuse me, what do you mean it's not going to be free? And then graduated into a recession. And no one could get a job. So even though I have, been very fortunate to sort of set myself up as a role model for freelancing and entrepreneurship, creative entrepreneurship, I did not ever kind of stand there and have my Scarlett O'Hara moment and go, from now on, I will be freelance. It just, it was a product of various circumstances. And I've been freelancing as a filmmaker and a writer and an occasional performer for a couple of years after I finished uni. And then when, the time came to sort of, when jobs started to come back and when life kind of got back to normal after the recession, I thought, well, no, bugger this, I'll just start my own company. I mean, by that stage, I could not be broken. I was very much like Black Beauty in that regard. I was just like, no, can't be done. I've been working now for 7 or 8 years and I've never had a job. And so then I subsequently never have had a job. So
Nice.
I do occasionally have bus driver fantasies though. Sometimes I think, running a company like this is very complicated. I could just be a bus driver.
And just go from one place to another, simple.
Yeah, just drive. I'd have to be one of those fun bus drivers who like decorates their bus.
Yes.
Obviously. And I'm sure I would get bored within the first week. But no, it's always good to have options. I'm pretty sure I'm unemployable at this point anyway, though. So that's my backup plan.
I think we can relate.
I think once you become a career freelancer, it does strike terror into your heart thinking you have to be somewhere by 9 a.m. and dressed appropriately. Like it just doesn't work for me at all.
Well, I'm the opposite. I'm an early riser. So I get up really early and then I'd be quite happy to be at work by 8, but then I'd want to have a nap at 2. It's the inability to nap that I would find quite stressful, because even though now I'm running a larger organization and I've got like employees and stuff, I'm still the boss. So if I say to my team, I'm going to pop home and have a nap will happen.
No one can say anything.
Who's going to stop me?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I love
Sounds
it.
lovely.
Well, we all know the business side of things is where freelancers drop the ball. And you've talked about how when you started freelancing, there just wasn't that. You were looking for that practical business help, and it just wasn't there. So was that sort of the inspiration for you going, well, I'm going to create it? Or how did that sort of evolve?
It evolved in a few different ways. So the first way that it evolved was I got really, really badly screwed over on a job. And I mean, everybody who's worked for themselves has got that story. Yeah. I made a feature film. I directed a feature film when I was 23 and that sounds amazing, and it was, but I also got really badly screwed on that deal. And that was sort of the beginning of me realizing that although I was creatively able and in many ways gifted, and although I am clever and was well educated, I didn't know any of that stuff. It was just that dawning realization that this really fundamentally important thing had never ever been taught to me, and I'd never absorbed it anywhere. And so again, it's like this idea of being successful in your craft, there's no understanding whatsoever about the ramifications of that or how that's going to work in terms of the other aspects of your life. So when I started my production company, that's when I started looking for business help. And all I could find was, I could find business help, but it was all really boring and very straightty 180. And I would go to these small business courses and everyone would introduce themselves and I'd say, well, hi, I'm Monica and I'm starting a film production company. And everyone would look at me like I was, starting a driving school for cats or, it was like the thing that I wanted to do was just so bizarre that I couldn't get any help. And also this is kind of the dirty little not secret, is that I also am terrible at maths, like really bad.
Yeah.
So we would be told, oh, here's how you control your finances, 4,000 spreadsheets. And I would just go, oh, my brain, like the whole thing just felt so frightening. So I got there. I made lots and lots of mistakes, some of them very bad mistakes that like kind of set me back or really stuffed things up for me in lots of ways. And then I kind of kept waiting for someone to start an organization where someone like me could go and get help.
Yeah.
And then I think it was a few years later that I thought, oh, crap, I think that's me. I think that person
It has to be me.
I
No
don't
one's
know.
going to do it.
I was sort of waiting,
Yeah.
checking my inbox going, has someone started that thing yet? And then I thought, crap, it is me. So I ran my first workshop in 1996.
Yep.
And, again, young people would be, horrified to work out how that was, so I rented a hall in Redfern in Sydney, and I put an ad in the paper, that cost me a fortune, and I got some tea and coffee, and then I just had to stand there and wait to see if people showed up, because that's how it worked. And about 40 people showed up, and I thought, oh, crap, all right, well, clearly there's a need. But it was always a very informal sort of sideline to my main creative practice. So I didn't formalize it until 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I closed my production company down. After 20 years, I didn't want to do it anymore. Went back to uni, got a master's degree in business, wrote a strategic plan, and then actually started Creative Plus Business Group. So even though I had already been doing that kind of work, in terms of teaching and mentoring and helping and facilitating, I decided that this is what I wanted to do then for the rest of my life.
Wow.
So that's what I'm doing.
How does Creative Plus Business help freelancers? What are some of the practical services that you offer, you see the need for?
We work with creative professionals regardless of what they call themselves. So, and they don't have to be freelancers. We also work with hobbyists and students and established businesses, The main service we provide is education. That's really what I like to think of us as an educational organisation. And so we provide a number of different educational offerings. We run workshops, either in person or online. They could be little short workshops that go for like 2 hours, or we run whole programs. We've got an incubator program called Artcelerate, which is for creative professionals who want to kind of take it to that next level. We run 2 webinars a month, which are free. Almost everything we offer is free, by the way. So 2 webinars a month. One is part of our lunchtime learning series, where we do a deep dive into something that's specifically relevant to professional freelancers and creatives. And then our evening education series is I suppose a little bit softer, more aimed at curious hobbyists or people who aren't really sure, or people who are kind of entertaining the idea of maybe taking that step. And then we also have a mentoring and business advisory service. So I've got 15 consultants who work for me, all experts in their different areas of practice. And people can sign up to be mentored by them, and we provide business advice through that program as well. So it could just be anything from like a one-off chat, maybe to go through a funding application to see if it's any good, or get some feedback about marketing, or talk about planning, or just ask 50,000 questions, or people can sign up for a longer program. And sometimes that's free. Sometimes you have to pay for it. Depends on where in Australia you're located.
Yeah.
Wow. And you were telling us before we went live that Creative Plus Business has sent you lots of different exciting places. You've traveled, all over, well, a lot of the world to provide training. Is that right?
Training and facilitation. I do a lot of one-on-one consultancy work with what we refer to as our senior clients. And so those clients are people working in the creative industries who are very well established, usually very well known, running larger organizations, or have kind of achieved success in their field. And they need help too. They just need very different kinds of help from people who are just starting out. So yes, I've had the very good fortune of running workshops and facilitating consultancies all over the world. I've got quite a few clients in London. I've got quite a few clients in New York. And yes, happily I get to get on planes and go and see them face to face sometimes. So although having said that, the pandemic obviously put the kibosh on that, and then we all got used to Zoom. And so my opportunities to really convince my clients that we need to work face to face. I'm decreasing now that we're all comfortable.
Damn it.
But I'm sure I could work something out. So.
Yeah. Well, have there been any really amazing stories? Oh, there must be so many. But companies that you've helped that have gone on to do great things. What are some of your favorite memories?
Well, the hilarious thing is that one of the rules that I established really early on was that we would not only maintain total confidentiality for all of our clients, but anonymity as well. So we are very happy to share details of our other clients that we work with, organizational clients or institutions. We work a lot with councils and universities and peak bodies and people like that. That's not a problem. But when it's a human, we don't share those details unless the human says it's okay. So I've got lots of great stories, but I can't tell you who any of those people were. What I will tell you is this was quite fun. I was at a very fancy screen conference event and I was talking to some wanker who, wanted to know more about my organization. And I told him, and he said, all right, so who have you worked with? Like I had to, reveal my credentials and give him the checklist. And I explained about it being confidential and anonymous. And he said, well, that's very convenient. That means that you can just come here and pretend that you've got all these really fantastic highfalutin clients. And, really you just could be a nobody who doesn't know anything. And I said, yeah, that's entirely possible. But happily, I don't require your approval or permission to do what I'm doing. So you're just going to have to live in mystery, mate, because I'm not violating my rules. Right at that moment, one of my clients, who is extremely well known in the screen industry, came up and said, hey, Mon, I'm so glad you're here. I've just been telling everybody about this incredible work you've been doing with the company. Come. And I was like, oh, thank you. Your timing is impeccable. He's like, yeah, that guy's a wanker. You don't want to talk to him. Come and talk to me. But of course, I have all of those stories. But I will tell you another one I was thinking about. I was doing some work with an Indigenous dance troupe in a regional part of Australia. And, they'd gotten funding for me to come and work with them. And, I'm not Indigenous, but, so we established aspects of cultural safety that was going to make sure everyone understood. But because we were talking about, as they called it, white people money, it was okay for me to sort of come in and help and talk about their business structure and their strategic planning and all the rest of it. Anyway, so these women said to me, right, okay, so before we get started, we've got to, take you on country for ceremony. And I just said, okay, thinking, what does that mean? Because I had mentioned to them previously, and I think I'm relatively infamous for my complete lack of affection for the bush. I really do not like nature or country life or trees or anything, right?
There would have been a lot of bush in this.
Yes. And so I told them that, and they were vaguely horrified by it. And I was explaining, I live in an apartment in a city, and that's where I'm happy. Like, concrete is my happy place. So they bundled me in the car, drove me off into the bush, and we're getting further and further away from, my comfort zone. I'm thinking, okay, just be cool, Monica, be cool. Got there, we all tumbled out of the car, and they said, right, it's just up here a bit further. So here I am tippy-toeing through the bush in my, pretty boots and little frock, trying to make my way through. We're getting deeper and deeper into it. They go, come on, just a bit further, just a bit further. I was probably about 100 meters from the car before they all started falling around laughing and saying, there is no such thing as ceremony for business advice. We just wanted to get you in the bush.
That's so funny.
They're like, what is wrong with you, stupid person? I was like, and I just said, you pack of moles, get back in the car immediately. How very dare you? Yes, I survived. I survived my 5 minutes in the wilderness with some people who are my favorite clients still to this day.
And that would have really broken the ice, let's face it.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Well, it's a real, I made these rules about confidentiality and anonymity because it's really scary for people to admit that they don't know what they're doing. The one thing that I really find so heartbreaking in a way about what we do is the amount of shame that people are carrying around about their inability to do any of these things. And I don't really know where that comes from, because I don't personally think, well, I don't think that shame is a necessary emotion really anyway. But if you haven't been taught how to do something, if people have just assumed that you'll know, why on earth should you feel any shame about that? It's like as creatives, you know, we get to go so far, and people are quite willing to teach us, and we're quite willing to maybe give us some encouragement, or, you know, let us write things at high school and then maybe go on to do sort of journalism or something at uni or whatever it might be. But at some point then someone just sort of throws us the keys to the business car and says, off you go then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we can't drive that car, we're immediately made to feel ashamed, you know. So that's why we've done it this way, is because we wanted to create a really safe place where people with a reputation, people with a name that you've seen in the paper, people who've just graduated from uni who haven't got any idea, it doesn't matter. We treat everyone the same.
Yeah.
And it's a safe place to be able to say, I know I should know this, but I don't.
Yeah.
And
do you think that creatives are more vulnerable to that? So they're certainly working as a creative for a long time. Sometimes there's two things. One is that it's seen to be boring and not creative, not to be business minded. So sometimes they think, if I understand the cash flow, does that make me boring and not the clever, you know, creative that I know I am? Or sometimes people go into creative industries if they don't understand things like maths and finance and economics. And so that can be a real fear that we, you know, if you've had bad experience with maths in school, people take that for a long time. And I've had designers I've worked with who will not even look at a spreadsheet because it stresses them out too much.
Wow, that's really sad. I mean, I think in terms of the boring, yeah, it is boring. I mean, everything we do is boring. We never try and make it anything else, you know. So,
and then looking after that means that you can be free to create your art.
That's so true.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, life is boring. All of the fun, everything that's fun has boring stuff attached to it, you know, like, you know, going on holidays is amazing, but there's boring bits. Like, there's boring bits to everything. You know, I always sort of think, well, the boring bits are just a means to an end. It's not the boring that's so worrying, it's the scary that's more of a concern to me. And no, I don't think the clients that we talk to don't have the attitude that I don't want to do boring things because it'll make me boring. It is much more like, I want to not do the boring things because they're boring, and I will put them off for as long as possible until my, you know, willful ignoring of that particular thing has now come to bite me in the bum because my taxes are late, or because all my contracts are stupid, or because I have no idea what I'm doing, you know. So so usually that's the thing. It's like, I know that it's going to be boring, but teach me anyway. And it's only ever boring because it's a means to an end anyway. We always focus on, where are you going with this? Yes, the journey itself might be boring, but the destination is what we're really getting to. And if that destination is something dull, like making sure your finances are up to date, your invoices are sent, your bills are paid, and you're ready for tax time, I mean, there is a lovely satisfaction in that as well.
Oh, for sure.
The reward for that is you get to sit on your balcony and drink wine and not have to worry about that stuff, which is very nice.
Absolutely.
And I fight a lot against this idea that all creative people are hopeless at this stuff, because I mean, a lot of us are, and there's some research now into why that is. It isn't actually that we're hopeless at this stuff. It's the linear way in which these topics are taught. And so that's one of the really important things that I've done with the organisation, is to ensure that everything we do, whether it's a webinar or a workshop or an advice session or whatever, we really stick to the principles of creative learning styles, because most creative professionals find it difficult to learn things in a linear, wordy way. They're much more likely to be engaged with other kind of learning tactics, like lots of visual information, lots of visual storytelling, you know, lots of interactivity and doing stuff. And, you know, so we've really incorporated a lot of that pedagogy into the way we do things. I know, thank you. But also, I don't think we've always been given a huge opportunity. You know, the assumption that we're going to suck at all of this stuff is so ingrained
Yeah.
that in most high schools, public high schools, if you're in like year 9 or 10, you know, when you're supposed to know what you want to do with the rest of your life because you're 14, and you have to pick your elective subjects, it is almost impossible to pick electives in the creative industries that also allow you to do economics or small business studies.
So it's an either or thing.
It's an either or. Those subjects are almost always programmed in alignment with each other, because even at an educational level, there's an assumption that a kid that wants to learn drama will not want to learn about small business.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're 14 years old and you're playing with the idea that maybe you might want to be a writer, and the whole system is telling you that that means you'll now suck at like business, you'll suck at business.
Yeah.
You know, my family are absolutely astonished that I'm good at this. But they're really, really proud of me. But they're like, you failed maths in year 10 and you did not appear to have any business acumen whatsoever. But I did, as it turns out. I just wasn't given very many opportunities to take it for a test drive.
And it wasn't, and you learn it in a non-linear fashion as well. And it's like, but I think most of us do too.
And that's why I learned by doing it, and I learned by making all those mistakes. And that's what I always say to people. Creative Plus Business is here to stop you from making the mistakes you don't have to make. There's lots of mistakes you have to make. You know, you have to make tons of mistakes in order to figure out how to do your job better and whether or not this is the right life for you. And there's a whole lot of mistakes and failures that need to come, because they'll enrich you and guide you and, you know, tell you a little bit more about yourself. But there's really, when it comes to business, money and marketing, which is where we live, there are a whole pile of mistakes you don't have to make. If someone just tells you what to do and you do it, you'll be fine. You know, making those sorts of mistakes, that's not a learning experience. That can derail you. Completely. Sure. So that's kind of where we've positioned ourselves.
I love that.
I wanted to ask you about awards, because you've won quite a few awards as part of your work helping creatives, and it sounds very cool. How much do awards help? I mean, are they nice to have, or do they open doors for you?
I mean, I do really like referring to myself as award-winning.
Fair enough. I think we can all take that. Yeah.
I've got some significant awards now. I was just pointing to them, they're behind me. But my very first award was as the most popular teacher at Sydney Community College in 1994. So since I got that, I've been referring to myself as an award-winning facilitator, because I am. No, awards don't mean much to me, but they're great for marketing. So, you know, it helps our clients to feel safer, that they're going to be in good hands. You know, I mean no disrespect to anyone in particular, but I do worry about the increasing number of people who are establishing themselves as creative coaches or creative business gurus. And I think, okay, that's awesome. I mean, I was sort of the first, but I don't want to be the only. And I go and have a look, and they don't really have any qualifications. They don't really have any, you know, backup for that assertion. And look, I might just be being a fuddy-duddy, but all the people I hire, all my consultants, all have qualifications in coaching or business or training or something relevant. So, and also have commensurate experience with running their own creative practices. So they've got both the kind of book learning and the qualifications that go with that, plus the lived experience, so they can give that kind of peer support. That's what awards are good for. Just to help people to feel like they're in safe hands. Yeah.
Talk to us about how you guys fund everything. I think you've mentioned it's mainly through government funding, but is that true? Is it ongoing, or do you have to keep applying, or how does it all work?
Well, I think the important thing to distinguish here is what we mean by funding, because when people say funding, I think they mean grants, but we are not a grant-funded organisation. So I think maybe about 10% of our revenue has come from grants over the last 7 years. It's quite rare for us to get grants, which means that 90% of our work is commercial. So we make commercial relationships with government organisations, tertiary institutions, that kind of thing. And then that's what funds our processes. But we're also a social enterprise. So we channel a percentage of our profits back into offering services for free. So our webinar program, for example, we pay for that entirely in-house as part of our social outreach. Nobody else pays for that. Sometimes someone will sponsor one, so we'll get someone to sponsor one. Somebody will, an organization will want to attach their name to that for a fee. If that doesn't violate our ethics, we'll allow that to occur. But yeah, most of the things that we do are either the result sometimes of a government grant, but mostly it's, yes, funding, but it's a commercial relationship. And I probably sound like I'm splitting hairs, but I didn't want people to get the wrong idea that there was this huge amount of grant money out there for the kinds of things that we do. That's not the case. And also we don't, at this point in time, we get almost no funding from the arts. So all of these commercial relationships and grants that I'm referring to, we actually fund this organisation from outside of the arts. We fund it through small business programs or through educational grants or research money, or comes in from all over the place. That's partly an ethical consideration because I just think there's so little arts funding. I think it should go to artists.
Yeah.
I don't think it should go to an organisation like mine when I've got so many other options. But also the bucket of money available for the arts is the smallest. Yeah. And I really, really like money. So I'm not going to pilfer from the smallest bucket. I'm going to go to the biggest bucket. I'm going to go to the corporate bucket or the, the business bucket or the education bucket. There's much, much more joy there. So yeah, it's like a big money jigsaw. And probably one of my favorite things about my work is piecing that jigsaw together.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. How many staff do you guys have?
We currently have 6 staff and about 20 consultants who provide business advisory services or workshop facilitation services. So, and they're all running their own businesses. So a lot of them are freelance, and then we just call them in for that kind of work when it comes up. So the core team is 6 people.
Yeah. Wow.
I know. Look at me with all of these people working for me.
I know.
The freelance life. Like the freelance life is just, that was me for a long time, just plugging away by myself, talking to myself. And now when I talk to myself, other people say things.
Yeah.
Very weird.
You're the boss.
I am. Someone else got me a coffee. It's like a dream come true.
Absolutely.
You wrote a Freelance for Dummies book, but a lot has changed since then. And
yes.
Are you going to update it?
Well, no, because I don't own the rights to it. They do. So I've still got copies if anybody wants an old copy of that book. No, look, that was such an amazing opportunity. Wow. It speaks to the power of search engine optimization. They went online and did a Google search of, freelance expert, and my name was the first one that came up. It was like,
amazing.
No, find a freelance expert for dummies.
Yeah, right. Exactly right. And it was quite a strange job too. It was very weird working for such a regulated publisher.
It's a very set formula. We've spoken to somebody else who wrote one of those books, and she said it's a really clear format and very particular.
Yeah, and I didn't really get a whole lot of opportunity to put some Monica flair in there, which is totally fine. And so the idea of writing another book, which I can do, I changed my contract to ensure that I could. Note to other writers out there, you don't have to do what you're told. So I had my contract altered with them. So even though they owned the rights of that book, I could still use that subject matter to create my own work, obviously, because it's my bag. And over the years, I played around with the idea. I even wrote a book, and then decided probably about a year before the pandemic, about 2019, that actually what I prefer to do is make it available as an online learning program. So it's exactly the same content, but so it's on our website. It's called Creative Startup, and it is more expensive than a book, but it falls in with the learning style. So it's all video based, lots of practical activities that people can do at their own time, interviews with other creative practitioners talking about their own experiences. Same idea, just presented in an audio visual way, which kind of made more sense to me in terms of educational offering, as well as my experience as a filmmaker and writer.
Amazing. Well, you have a lot of freelancers crossing your path. What are some of the biggest challenges for them and for creative people generally right now?
Well, I don't think we are as buffeted by trends as people think. I think the things that have been difficult for us are things that have always been difficult for us. And it's kind of an internal and external view. So internally, I think the things that are hard for us are prioritizing our own businesses, making the time to actually think of ourselves as a business and therefore consequently take care of ourselves in that way. You know, one of the things I think can be very damaging for freelancers is to think of themselves as only valuable when they have been paid to do work. It's like that on-off switch was like, oh, okay, as a freelancer, a client can book me and kind of turn me on. And then when they leave, I'm off. And then I have no value and I've got nothing to do. And now I'm going to just eat my feelings and panic. And I think that's a really dangerous way of approaching freelancing, because when you're a freelancer, you are a business. And so if you're not working directly for a paying client, there are actually 50,000 other things that you could be doing to build your business and your marketing and take care of your financials and kind of keep yourself occupied. The irony, of course, being that if you learn how to do those things and figure out how to keep yourself occupied with your internal admin and your money and your marketing, of course, you're going to get more work. You know, you're going to start treating things in a slightly more regular way. The external challenge is always the same, which is just finding the work, managing the work, the famine and the feast of, you know, when we're busy and when things are quiet, you know, we can make a whole lot of money all at once and then we make nothing for ages. And just, you know, I always say that when you choose to be freelance, you choose to invite chaos into your life. You basically fling open the front door and say, oh, hello, chaos, in you come. Oh, you want to just sit there? Okay, that's fine. Oh, you're breaking things now. Great. Yeah, so you kind of have a permanent relationship with chaos. And frankly, I think most of us chose freelancing because we kind of like that, you know. But I think that by kind of understanding you can't control anything about that, you've got no sphere of influence over, you know, how much work is coming in or what's happening in the economy or what chaos is doing, but you have a huge amount of control over how you conduct your own freelance life. And by putting some boundaries around things like the way you decide to run your business or the way you manage your time or the way you approach your financials or your marketing, you can actually create safe havens from chaos.
Yeah.
You don't
So
have to let chaos rule everything. Chaos is going to rule some of it. And frankly, we dig that a little bit because otherwise we wouldn't do it. You know, that's what I always say. I'm an extremely smart, well-educated woman. I picked this.
Yes.
I picked it, and I picked it on purpose. And so, you know, some of those things, maybe it's not socially acceptable, but yeah, I'm into it. Chaos, come on in, you know. The whole of my professional life, which is now, God, 37 years, I have never really been able to predict my income more than 3 months from wherever I'm standing right now.
Yeah.
That is such an interesting, you know, look at it. So you're saying that you think that freelancers dig the roller coaster, even if we say we don't, and we're trying to get off it and we're trying to make everything a bit more uniform, we actually really like it.
I think successful ones do.
Successful ones do, because you know that you're always going to get work. Work is round the corner and you stop stressing and you go to the movies, you know, like, because you've been on that journey and through that loop so many times.
Yeah, but that's where the faith part of it comes into it, you know, and I don't mean like religious faith. For me, my definition of faith is absolute belief in the absence of evidence.
Yes.
So I absolutely believe that even though I don't know what my life is going to look like financially in January, I choose to not be too scared about that. I'm just going to surrender myself to the fact that it has always been fine.
Yeah.
And I have faith that it will be fine, and not to just throw up my hands and say, well, I'll just sit here and look pretty and wait for opportunity to come in. No, you got to get off your ass and hustle.
Yeah.
you know, but if you get off your ass and hustle, and then you also treat this amazing thing that you can do with the respect that it deserves, don't squander your abilities by thinking that someone else is going to just magically take care of all this stuff for you. This is all your responsibility.
Yeah.
Talent comes with responsibility. And if you want to make your talent into your profession, then you have to treat that with the same responsibility as you would any other kind of job, in my opinion. So yeah, that means doing boring things and scary things and hard things. But then at some point you do have to just throw up your hands and go, well, I've done everything I can. I've been hustling all week. I've organized my finances. I've sent all my invoices. Now I'm going to have a nap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean,
think if it can't live with the roller coaster, maybe freelancing is not
for you.
for you. And
Yeah.
I do think that some people just need that 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
And I mean, I used to think like that, but when I discovered freelancing, I realized I actually prefer the roller coaster, as you say. And I like the fact that I can get up really early and do work, but then stop at 3 to go for a long walk.
Absolutely. We do choose it. And I think even though there might be lots of parts that we don't like, you know, if you want to do it for the whole of your life, you have to really, really, really intensely like the likable parts and not too strongly detest the bad parts. You know, I never had any qualms about venturing forth into the big unknown. You know, really, that's what it's been for me. It's been a constant adventure because I set foot, you know, out the door on my way on whatever this particular journey is without any real clear idea what my life is going to look like in 6 months. And I'm not kidding. 6 months from now, it's a bit of a mystery, really, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and I dig that, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't do it. I had qualms about taking my children with me. So I was a single mum for a while there, and I had 3 kids under 4.
Oh, yeah.
And so dragging them along on that journey with me, that was the only time I ever really worried that maybe I was being irresponsible. But then I was able to be that thing that is very hard to do. I was able to be a fully attentive mum who was constantly available and also had a full-time job. I just didn't have that full-time job for one single entity. I had that full-time job for multiple entities, which for me is job security.
Yeah.
You know, if any one of them had, you know, gotten rid of me, I could have replaced them very easily. Whereas if I'd lost a job, I would have been absolutely destroyed. And all 3 of those children are now adults and all working in the creative industries. So, clearly it wasn't too traumatizing, you know. And and they're all kind of learning through their own experience rather than just hearing it from me about how to put the pieces together so that you can make a space for chaos and let chaos rule and have fun with chaos. And that's the roller coaster. But when it comes to other parts of it, you just be a bit more organized, and then it's not nearly as scary as it might seem at first.
Well, you guys have got lots of training. You do a lot of training, as you've mentioned. What's some of the training that you have coming up that you're really looking forward to? And is some of it kind of built around what you want to learn as well?
Oh, yeah. Well, we've got a webinar coming up called Can Artists and AI Be Friends, which I'm dying to watch, but I mean, I'll be running it, so I have to kind of get a bit ahead of it. Look, you know, every topic that we explore in our webinars in particular, which are free for everybody, they're all based on input that we get from our clients or from our consultants or things that we can sort of see happening. So people, anyone could submit a webinar idea to us, and we pay, and you know, if we think it's a worthwhile topic, we'll explore that. So, you know, they're always really cool and fun, and sometimes informed by things that I want to know. But we've also really excited about our Artcelerate program. So we've only been running that for a couple of years. We're running it next year in South Australia. We're hoping to be running it again in Sydney and in a few other places. And that's just so cool. Like, it's a really good, long, meaty, interesting program that people can get into, and some really magical stuff happens when people just take 6 whole weeks to just think about what the hell they're doing and where they want to go and what kind of outcomes they want to see, and being really mindful about this decision to be creative for a living. But very few of us had that Scarlett O'Hara moment that I was talking about earlier. Most of us fell into it, or we've juggled freelancing and jobs, or we've gone back and forth to freelancing when our life has asked us to, or when things have happened. And it's a very ad hoc way of living your life, and a lot of us like it that way. But this is a really nice opportunity to really just think about it. And that's really where I love what we do, because whenever anybody makes the commitment to watch a webinar or book to see an advisor or sign up to one of our longer programs, they're really saying to themselves, what I do is valuable and what I want is important, and I'm going to dedicate the time to learn about this so that I can kind of take it a bit more seriously. I just think that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if they're doing it in my organization, even better.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're obviously juggling a lot. What does a typical week look like? Is there such a thing?
No, I don't know. I don't really have one. I mean, I divide them into weeks when I'm in Sydney and weeks when I'm not, because I travel for about 20 weeks of the year.
Wow. Okay.
I know. Love planes. Yeah, I don't have a typical week. I do always have the Monday morning meeting. I swear by a Monday morning meeting. So that when I was freelancing, that was just me by myself, figuring out what the week looked like. And, I'd always set aside time on a Monday morning to not only kind of draw up a bit of an agenda for my week, but also just use that time to do all the boring bits that needed to be done. So I could, I'd pay my bills and email that person and say yes to that thing, and kind of do all those little kind of bitty bits of admin, do them all on a Monday morning. And then I could sort of throw myself into more interesting work for the rest of the week, and I still do that. So if I don't have my Monday morning meeting, I feel a bit lost. And then after that, who knows what could happen? I could be having a nap. I could be getting on a plane. I could be running a workshop. I could be
napping on a plane.
Be napping on a plane and getting ideas for new things that I want us to do here. Yeah, who knows? It's really varied. And that's why I know that I picked this for a reason, because, and I mean, absolutely no disrespect to anybody with a job. This is not about other people. This is just about me. For me, the worst day that I could have as a self-employed person would still be better than my best day being someone else's employee.
Yeah, I think we can relate to that.
Yeah, totally. Well, I feel like I'm in safe company to say.
You are.
Yes.
We feel the same.
I didn't think I was going to offend anybody, so.
No. Well, look, we like to ask everybody about their tech tips, because we get a lot of feedback from our listeners saying, we love the tech tips, and, they like learning about what other people use. So what are the digital tools that you would be lost without, and why?
Okay, I'd be lost without Google Workspace. So my whole organization is built on Google Workspace. We all have Gmail, we all have Drive. My business is featured on Google. We use all of the parts of Workspace, which I think is a really important thing to mention, because it's not an expensive product to sign up to, but most people are only using email.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different apps and practicalities and more every day. So that I would be totally lost without that. I'd have absolutely no idea what I was doing. I'd be totally lost without Asana. Asana is our kind of time management and project management tool that we use the most, and I live for that particular piece of software, because it once you've completed tasks or ticked things off your list, or reached a certain point and it's totally randomized, a beautiful unicorn flies across the screen.
I love the unicorn.
And now we've got the paid version, and there's an otter and a bison, and I live for all of those creatures. I mean, I'll just put things on my list and then tick them off in the hope that the unicorn will appear.
Yeah.
Because I'm basically I'm
That's
12
the
years
one
old.
thing I miss from Asana because I don't use it anymore, but I did love that. It's
I
just
mean,
very cute cute functionality.
extremely motivating.
Yeah.
I think they're probably my two main ones, because I still am kind of old school and I do still like to write things down on paper and, have those moments. But yeah, those are the things I wouldn't be able to, I could not run my business without those two things.
Amazing.
Wow, this has been so brilliant, Monica. I really loved it. And I really think it's so great to hear how you can combine a creative business with actually a functional, sustainable business. And I think that's
Systems.
it's great. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
really good thing. And we're all about that, I think. So
Yeah.
I'm sure our listeners will want to get in touch. Where can they find you?
They can find us at creativeplusbusiness.com. Everything is accessible through our website, including the webinars and the online courses. So we've got 4 of them, I think, that people can sign up for, and they can go and actually check out the team. And if they want to book a meeting with one of our consultants, they can just contact and find out about how to do that. It's all pretty automated, actually. So yeah.
Awesome.
And if they can go and read all our articles and listen to what we have to say about stuff. And, we have a lot of very generous free resources for people, partly because I want to make sure that we're being equitable for people who don't have a huge budget, but also because I think it's a good way of helping people feel safe. Like, well, this is what we're happy to give you for nothing. Imagine if you paid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, creativeplusbusiness.com. It's all there.
You definitely have a fantastic blog, and I would also encourage anyone to sign up to your newsletter because every time it comes through, I open it to see what you're doing this month, and I'm like, "Ooh, that looks interesting." I think I signed up for some kind of photography one.
Yeah,
that you have coming up. Yeah,
that's coming up. Yeah, and we always have like a nice link to a interesting article, and there's a bit of a music video in there. I mean, we just try and keep everybody happy. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, people can sign up to the newsletter on our website as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Monica. And thanks everybody for listening. You'll find all the show notes in the podcast app and a link to where you can connect with Monica and Creative Plus Business.
Yeah, and I should say thanks again to our sponsors, rounded.com.au, because they're easy in accounting and invoicing software, and they're just made for Australian freelancers and sole traders. So go to rounded.com.au.
That's it from us this week. You'll see us next week.
For sure. Thanks, Monica.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.